This Sunday, we will most certainly have the most competitive men's cyclocross world championships in years. After 7 years of complete domination from Wout van Aert and Mathieu Van der Poel, both will be missing this year's world championships, and as a result, everybody else smells their chance to claim the rainbow jersey. This may be the only chance many of these riders get, and as a result, the pressure is really on. Last year in Oostende, it was once again the Van der Poel and Van Aert show, Mathieu getting the better of Wout to claim a third consecutive world title, a fourth in total. Over a minute and a half behind those two, Toon Aert romped to a third consecutive bronze medal, Tom Pidcock landed himself in fourth, whilst Laurens Sweeck was fifth. Belgians also finished in positions 6, 7 and 8. Once again, the Belgians bring with them the strongest team. However, they will be missing one major part. Quentin Helmans took his first and so far only World Cup victory here in Fayetteville back in October, blowing the rest apart to win with relative ease. Though looking at the weather that day, I'm not really sure relative ease is really a thing at all. Unfortunately, Helmans became one of two Belgians to test positive for COVID-19, the other being women's junior rider Hazy van Sinay. As a result, neither Helmans nor van Sinay has made the trip to America. Presumably this also adds quite some nerves to the rest of the Belgian camp, knowing that they may well suddenly test positive. Helmans' replacement for the race though is first year elite rider Toon van der Bos, whose debut elite season has been pretty okay, hanging around the top 10 for most of the year. The rest of the team includes stalwarts Jens Adams and Dan Suter. Vincent Bostanz has his World Championships dream come true too. Laurens Sweeck will be hoping to improve on a poorish season by claiming the biggest prize in cross, but really there are three names expected to compete right at the very top. Michael van Toerenhout is Mr. Consistent, always there or thereabouts, and will be looking to add to his 2018 silver medal with another podium in Fayetteville. Toon Aert would likely prefer a course to be a bit more muddy, being one of the world's best in those conditions. Nonetheless, Aert is good enough to feature prominently in this race in the dry too. He has 3 bronzes, it's time to step up for Toon. The absolute Belgian leader, however, should certainly be Elie Iserbyt. Iserbyt has been utterly dominant this year and is undoubtedly the most deserving rider to take the world title. Iserbyt this year has won the World Cup for the very first time, and with it won 7 different rounds, effectively half the competition. With the expectations of a dry course in Fayetteville, Elie will be licking his lips. He'd maybe prefer a course with some tighter corners, but this thing is basically a dream Iserbyt parcours, much like Hoge Heide was last week. Much like Hoge Heide as well, Iserbyt's main rivals should be his mini-mates, Britain's Tom Pidcock and Lars van der Haar from the Netherlands. Lars van der Haar is going through somewhat of a revival year. After a few lesser seasons, the former World Cup winner is back at the top of his game. He'll be hoping to be the second rider, alongside Mathieu Van der Poel of course, to successfully unite all 3 major jerseys. Back in November, Van der Haar won the European Championship on the Vanberg, pulling off a major shock at the time to wear the jersey for the second time in his career. Then, earlier this month, Van der Haar swept the floor with his competition in Rukven to claim the national title too. The Jack Russell will be aiming to complete the trifecta by taking his first elite world title. Much like Iserbyt, Van der Haar will be hoping for a dry parcours. His punchy nature means that this course is pretty well suited to him, and Van der Haar was the first rider to tailor build his past month or so around the worlds. He was the first one daring to take the gamble that Van der Poel and Van Aert wouldn't be here, and so is probably the best prepared. However, whilst Van der Poel and Van Aert might not be there, Tom Pidcock most certainly is. Pidcock might not be at their level yet, but he's the type of generational talent that could well hit those heights too, and so far this year has been Pidder's breakthrough season. In Rukven, Pidcock became the first British male to win a World Cup, and in Hulst he won one again, becoming the only Briton outright with 2 World Cups to his name. The silver medalist from Dubendorf, Pidcock was targeting gold here long before both Mathieu and Wout announced they wouldn't be here. In fact, it's part of his slightly deranged goal of becoming the second person to unite the cross, road and mountain bike world titles, after Pauline Ferrand-Prévot did so in 2015. On pure talent, Pidcock is probably the favourite, but after his somewhat bizarre outing in Hoge Heide, where he simultaneously looked the strongest and the weakest of the three at various points in the race, I don't really know what to expect from Tom. He might drop them all on lap 1 and win by a minute. He might end up missing the podium. Who knows? What I do know is he'll be feeling the pressure the least. He's the youngest rider amongst them, and he still has many chances to deliver his dream world title. Van der Haar and Pidcock can also rely on some decent teammates. Van der Haar will have support of Toormans' consistent king, Corné van Kessel, whilst Tom Pidcock will be joined by Ineos teammate Ben Turner, who could well top 10 in his own right, and newly crowned British champion Thomas Mean. The Geordie would probably prefer a muddier race, but nonetheless he could do well here too. Outside of the current 3 major dominant countries, there are of course some other mentions as well. The USA's Gage Hecht took a career best World Cup finish in Fayetteville in October when he finished in 8th. If the weather gets tough, most eyes will be on him. Expect Kerry Werner and Curtis White to head the American team too, and don't forget about American and Pan Am champion Eric Brunner either. Canadian eyes will be on Michael van den Ham once more, and everybody's favourite Costa Rican is back as well. Felipe will be the first Costa Rican to race at the Cyclocross Worlds after he captured the hearts of many cyclocross fans with his crazy story that saw him end up racing Namur and Dendermonde earlier this year. For Germany, Marcel Meisen will be lining up once again, whilst French eyes will be on newly crowned French champion Joshua Dubois, and of course on Clément Venturini. The former junior world champion and nowadays Age Desert road cyclist is riding his first Worlds since BL 2017. Cyclocross's sleeping giant Switzerland will have Kevin Kuhn and Gilles Moutier on the start list, but they'll be hunting for top 10 finishes. So will Spain's Felipe Orts and Kevin Suarez. As already mentioned though, the real favourites are the trifecta of pint-sized punchy pretenders. Only one of them can truly be crowned world champion and king of cross at the end of the day, and deciding which one out of Elie Iserbyt, Tom Pidcock and Lars van der Haar will actually end up winning the best is incredibly tough. Van der Haar is on paper probably the weakest, but he beat Pidcock last week and is a known man for the big occasions. Iserbyt feels like he's right on target, pretty near his top form, whilst there are some questions about Tom Pidcock. However, he himself seems largely not to care. I can't lie, I'd love to see Lars van der Haar do it, entirely because he's been my guy since I started watching cross a decade ago, whilst Elie and Tom were still slogging it out in junior categories. But all these 3 riders would be deserving of a world title, and you would have to feel happy for them either way. I think my favourite going into it might just be Elie Iserbyt. He won the Grand Rehearsal in Hoge Heide, and he seems to quite like America too, winning here fairly regularly. It honestly still could go either way though. I also think people discounting Michael van Turenhout and Toon Aerts are doing so truly at their own peril. Both are on very strong form and both have a habit of performing when they need to. Thing is, if this place stays dry, it'll be tough to get a gap and it'll be tough to get away. If a race like this stays close and stays closed for a long time, we could see a real outsider pull off a big shock too. All you need is a bit of luck in a closed race, and suddenly you could be finishing way higher than you'd normally have any hope of finishing. So keep an eye out for anyone and everyone, because this thing is going to be so competitive. All in all, this is the most unpredictable Worlds probably since we last visited the States in 2013. As I'm recording this, it's still 4 days away and I'm bricking it already. Nerves will be high, there will be more tension, and there is more tension behind this World Championship than any in almost a decade. And when that tension breaks, when it explodes into action, expect a legendary race. Everybody sees this as their one chance, and they have to take it. So I hope you'll be watching on Sunday the 30th of January at 2:30 in the afternoon at local time. That'll be 8:30 in the United Kingdom and 9:30 in most of Western Europe. Brace yourself for an old school punch out and for possibly the best race you're going to see in years.